Good afternoon, and welcome to the Revere City Council meeting of March 11, 2019. Please, in the audience, would you please join the City Council in rising to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk and members of the City Council, we've had a very, very sad week this past week. We lost 3 valid members of our community, and we all are held with much sympathy for their families and their loved ones. First is the former City Councilor Kathy Penn's brother, Alan Belafonte. He suddenly passed away. He took a heart attack, and unfortunately, it created a death. And we offer our sympathies out to Kathy Penn and her family. Then we had a school committee man, Jimmy Sorrento, who was a former school committee person. He also passed away this past week, and we offer his family and his friends our deepest condolences. And finally, we had a member of our family, John Powers. He lost his beautiful daughter, Michelle, to death. And we are all wish John and his family the best of wishes, and hope that God speeds and keeps him in his prayers, and we all will keep John in his prayers. And I ask you all to rise for a moment of silence. Thank you. Got 2 other notices. Council Patch has offered his apologies for not being here. His son was operated on this past week. He's trying to get him into a nursing home, and at this moment he's still at Mass General looking for a proper facility so that they can transfer his son to that location for rehabilitation. And finally, Councilor George Rotundo has called and said that he will be a little late. Madam Clerk.
Roll call of the members. Councilor Janino. Here. Councilor Keefe.
Here.
Here. Councilor McKenna.
Here.
Here. Councilor Morabito.
Here.
Here. Councilor Novoselsky.
Yes, here.
Here. Councilor Patch is absent. Councilor Powers.
Here.
Here. Councilor Rizzo. Here. Councilor Rotundo is absent. Councilor Zambudo.
Here.
Here. And Council President Guanasso.
Here.
Here. Quorum is present. Approval of the journals of the regular meetings of February 11th and February 25th.
So moved.
So ordered. Prior to us taking up the zoning subcommittee report, it was a request for a city official to take calendar item number 13 out of order. So please, would you, I ask for suspension of rules. All in favor, all opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 13, communication from the city auditor relative to various free cash appropriations.
On this particular matter, is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak? What we're going to do with this is, because of the appropriation size and the monetary value of it, this is going to go right over to Ways and Means for its review and further deliberation. So anybody in attendance this evening here for that particular purpose, that's what's going to happen to this. This is going to go over to Ways and Means. So there'll be no discussion on it this evening. It'll just be referred over. All in favor? All opposed? So ordered. Madam Clerk? Back to the regular order of business.
Calendar item number 4, an ordinance further amending the zoning ordinances, the zoning subcommittee report from Councilor Zambudo.
Councilor Zambudo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Obviously, the zoning subcommittee met earlier this evening. We had 2 items to take up. They are both being left in committee for further discussion, especially the one on the wireless antennas. There's been a lot of concern about health issues, and I've asked all the parties to submit documentation so that before we approve this, we know that they are certainly safe. there's conflicting reports, and so that's where we're at. Both of those, we will meet soon. Probably by the next city council meeting, we'll have another zoning subcommittee, and we'll take up both these issues.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman. And it may go out of Chairman, Madam Clerk. Mr. Chairman of Ways and Means, where there's so many people in the audience in here who would like to hear, when is that meeting going to be conducted for the review of the free cash distribution? Do you have any idea?
I would say prior to our next regularly scheduled meeting, I would imagine.
Okay, and that is March 25th, I believe. March 25th, okay with you?
It's fine with me.
So all those in attendance here this evening wishing to, thinking that there's some discussion was going to occur regarding the distribution of free cash, it's going to occur on March 25th in the council chamber. Any particular time, Mr. Chairman? 5 p.m. 5 p.m., March 25th, for the distribution of the free cash. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Calendar item number 6, we're on to the Legislative Affairs Subcommittee report.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll give you a brief update on our very productive meeting today. We took up a number of ordinances or motions that were brought forth over the last number of years. To start off, 18-036, an ordinance prohibiting disposable plastic bags. That was voted out favorably to go to public hearing. And there was a little discussion, but overall, it did vote favorably for the members in attendance to go to a public hearing. 18-159, the conversations or the communications between Councilor McKenna and Councilor Janino were they were going to take this and put it in the form of an ordinance and bring it back in front of the City Council at a later time. 18-233, relative to clean and healthy parks, that was voted out favorably this evening. Councilor 18-386 was tabled. 19-030, motion presented by Councilor Morabito. That was also, that's still on the table. We are going to, actually it was voted out favorably to send the information to the city solicitor, so when we're building the ordinance, we can have this in mind, although that will be on a separate vote. 19-036 was voted out favorably. In 19-037, an ordinance amendment relative to snow, slush, and ice on sidewalks pertaining to owner-occupied properties was also voted out favorably.
Madam Clerk, after the chairman's report, will you take out the items that were listed for a vote to please take them forward?
And just to clarify, that was a motion presented by Councilor Powers to amend the current snow, slush, and ice ordinance on the books to exempt any owner-occupant seniors.
That's 19-037.
Correct. So if you'd like to bring a few of these are going to have to go in front of the full council for vote.
Okay. Thank you.
That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Clerk. Item number 6, in reference to 18-036, disposal of plastic bags. That's been ordered to a public hearing. And 19-037 is going to committee.
18-159, Councilor. Number 7?
Number 7 has been 18-159.
Yes.
That'll stay. That's going to be tabled.
That's going to be tabled. That's staying in, remain in committee.
Calendar item number 8, that's an ordinance promoting clean and healthy parks and designating such as drug, alcohol, tobacco, and weapon-free zones.
Ordered to a second reading. All in favor, opposed? Ordered to a third and final reading. Roll call for engrossment and endatement. Roll
On
call.
engrossment and ordainment, Councilor Janino.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Keefe.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor McKenna.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Morabito. Yes, Councilor Novoselsky.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Patch is absent. Councilor Powers.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Rizzo.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Rotundo is absent.
No, I'm
sorry,
here.
Sorry, Councilor. Councilor Rotundo.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Zambuto.
Calendar number 8,
Yes.
Counselor.
Yes, and Council President Guanasso.
Yes.
Yes, the ordinance relative to clean and healthy parks has been engrossed and ordained. Number 9, that's going to remain in committee, unless Councilor Rotundo wants to speak on it now that he's here.
Read the motion.
Calendar item number 9, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo.
Mr. Chairman, before we move forward, can I ask for reconsideration?
By request of Councilor Janino on calendar item number 8, a request for reconsideration that hopes it does not prevail. All in favor? Opposed? So ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Reconsideration fails. Calendar item number 9.
That was to remain in committee as Councilor Rotundo was not in attendance.
Did the city, did the city solicitor send any response back to us?
Did
No.
you receive any?
Nope. So I had asked for that.
Madam Clerk?
Mr. President, if you'd like, Councilor Rotundo, through you to
Through the
Councilor
chair.
Rotundo.
Councilor Keefe.
Council Guanasso, Council President Guanasso, through you to Councilor Rotundo. What I would like to do is, and I apologize, I have not received any communication, but I will request, or Madam Clerk, could you request on my behalf that I get communication in reference to Councilor Rotundo's motion so we can bring this up on our next Legislative Affairs Subcommittee?
Councilor Rotundo.
Point of information, actually, the night of the motion in which it went into committee, it was asked that the city solicitor look at Boston's and derive something so that we could have something to speak about in committee, just because of the, complex legalness of it. But I guess it hasn't gotten to him yet.
Calendar item number 10.
Calendar item number 10, motion presented by Councilor Morabito that the mayor request the city solicitor to create an ordinance to include provisions for the maximum local tax option and excise tax on short-term rentals.
Councilor Morabito. Calendar item number 10. It's your motion.
Councilor Morabito, Council President, point of information. Council
State your
President.
point, Councilor.
That was voted in favor in our subcommittee, and we are going to continue to put the ordinance together, so
Remain on the table.
remain on the table. Thank you.
Point of information,
State your point, Councilor.
has a letter gone to, can we have a letter go to Robert Pucci from CAPIC, asking him to participate in this particular motion?
Well, this is in a subcommittee, so this can be, the conversation can be held there, and we can ask any
Through you
requests.
to Patrick Keefe, Councilor Keefe, that's why I said thank you.
Noted.
Madam Clerk.
Calendar item number 11 is an ordinance relative to certain persons not represented under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 150E, Section 10.
So the City Council approve an ordinance relative to certain persons of representation represented under MGL Chapter 150E, Section 10. Ordered on a second reading. All in favor? So, ordered on a third and final reading. All in favor? All opposed? So ordered. Roll call for engrossment and endangerment.
Councilor Janino?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Keefe?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Morabito?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Patch is absent. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rizzo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes, the ordinance has been approved or engrossed and ordained. Calendar item number 12 is an ordinance further amending an ordinance relative to snow and ice removal on sidewalks relative to owner-occupied properties.
On the motion, ordered to a second reading. All in favor, all opposed? Ordered to a third and final reading. All in favor, all opposed? Request roll call for engrossment and endangerment. Madam Clerk.
Councilor Janino?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Keefe?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Morabito?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Patch is absent. Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Rizzo?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Zambuto?
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes, the ordinance has been engrossed and ordained. Calendar item number 14, communication from the Director of Finance as it relates to free cash transfers to the Stabilization Fund, Water and Sewer Stabilization Fund, and Capital Improvement Stabilization Fund in accordance with the revised ordinances of the City of Revere.
Mr. Mayor?
Good evening, Mr. President. I just wanted to, in lieu of the Director of Finance's absence this evening, I wanted to update the council on the free cash communication that was passed down last week. We have just over $6 million that will be certified in our general fund and $2.8 million that is certified in our water and sewer enterprise fund. Of that amount that has been certified in free cash, we are going to be depositing into our general fund rainy day account $900,000. We will deposit $428,000 into our water and sewer rainy day fund, and we will transfer $1.2 million into our capital reserve account from free cash. All told, the city is in spectacular financial shape. The fact that we have reserves on the general side up over $8 million now is a great sign. Our water and sewer rainy day fund is now up over $6 million, and it is not by accident that these great things are happening. And it is the tireless work of this council, of the administration, and the folks who work in our financial offices and who are committed to making the city a great place. It was, I think, already sent to committee, but of the free cash that we also certified, we have a couple of highlights that I just want to run by, and if there are any councilors that have any questions about any of those, I'd love to entertain them in advance of the committee meeting. But we have $1.4 million of money that will go into our streets and sidewalks. This is going to be the most amount of money that the city's ever spent on streets and sidewalks in our history. That is over and above the money that we get from the state. As the councilors, I think, are aware, we get around $700,000–800,000 a year from the state to do street and sidewalk repair, and that certainly isn't enough. And so that's why we've committed this additional amount over and above that to make sure that our streets and sidewalks are in great shape. So with that said, I've talked to some of the ward councilors about the streets that we'll be targeting. Mr. President, you understand which streets will be done in Ward 3, and I look forward to having ongoing conversations with all the ward councilors to make sure that we are attacking the areas that everyone understands are areas that need to be need the appropriate attention. In addition, we have a number of appropriations for the Sand Sculpting Festival, the Historical Society, the beautification of the city, and we have some additional appropriations for our school department that are a little different and something that has not been done in the city previously, but I think is innovative and a creative way to think about how we spend free cash. And the idea is, I know there may be the most questions around how that money in the schools would get spent, but the idea is that there would be strict guidelines of supplies and equipment and materials that either our student activity clubs or our varsity teams at the high school would be able to use to do what they do each and every year, and to have that amount over and above what they are able to scrape by with. They have a number of 50-50 raffles. They have parents and teachers and coaches who are constantly struggling to fundraise and to figure out where they can scrap up every nickel. This, in my opinion, was a worthy investment. You know, we've talked so much about investing in the future of the city, and you know, we're going to go forward with a new high school, and that's great for the kids who are really young right now. But the high schoolers who are here now, we should see some of this, the benefit of the great work that we're all doing together. So I thought that was a worthy portion that could be allotted to the schools. And the other part was something a little more innovative, $10,000 per school. We know that there are a number of capital improvements that need to be made at each and every one of our schools, even our newer ones. So what we thought would make, or what I thought would make some sense is for the students to have some participation in how that money gets spent. So the idea will be that they will have, again, strict guidelines about how that money could get spent, but they would ultimately come up with the idea and vote on what idea should get funded. And I think, again, that will be a great benefit for our students, hopefully create some future leaders, and I know we have future leaders in our schools, but to give them the ability to affect change and have a great idea and get it funded is really important. So if there are any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Well, initially, as you know, this is going to go to Ways and Means.
Absolutely.
And so what I would do is I would offer it out this evening to the councilors for brief review, and we'll take them in the order as they requested. Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Mayor, you mentioned $1.4 million, and then you mentioned additional money from the state. Are we talking about the Chapter 90 money that would come from the state? Which
Correct.
would
So
probably be in the area of $700,000?
Right, we got the allotment, I think it was 778 or 870,000, but it's generally in the $700,000 to $800,000 range. The 1.4 million is over and above that, right? So that's usually historically what we normally get.
Yep.
Last year, this council, under my request, appropriated an additional 500,000 for some streets and sidewalks. I think that money was well spent, and we can do more, and we want to do more, and that's why we.
So we're talking, if you add it all up, if my numbers are correct, $2.2 million in street and sidewalk repairs.
Correct.
And I think that's a tremendous thing. I know last year we did Tapley Avenue, and I know the people down there were very happy with that, and hopefully this year we'll be able to get an awful lot more done. The other question I have is the $50,000 going into the beautification committee. Is that monies that could be used? I know we need to do some sprucing up of Butler Circle, and also of some signage down there that is, you know, appropriate for that particular area. That could be, part of that money could be used for that?
All right, so the 50,000 that would be deposited into the revolving fund for beautification efforts will be money that will be used for exactly that, for any beautification efforts that folks see, and the name of the account is the Revere Beautification Committee account, and I've had conversations with them. We will talk about how to best go forward, but that is certainly an idea that could be funded through that account.
To me, that's good news. We're, you know, moving the city in I think a more pleasant, positive position where people driving through our city. That's one thing that's always troubled me. Some of these areas that people drive through, it sends a bad message to the residents to the people that come through our city, and I think this is going to make it an awful lot nicer.
Thank you, Councilor Powers. Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the mayor. Thank you for showing up and giving us this great news. I'm truly appreciative. To clarify, we got $6 million in free cash and just about $8 million currently in the rainy day fund, correct?
So after you make the deposit of 900,000, there will be $8.2 million in our stabilization account, our general fund stabilization account.
Okay, and this 6 million free cash is aside from that, correct?
Right.
It'll end up either being used for something or getting bumped into the stabilization account.
Right. So the 6 million is for the end of fiscal year 18. That 900,000 will statutorily has to come out of
Right.
that account. The same way So what you're voting, what you will be voting on are the statutory obligations that we have to deposit money into our stabilization accounts and to our capital reserve account.
And if we wanted to, we could put more into the stabilization account, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Upwards of 5 million if we wanted to, just for happenstance.
Depends on how much
Whatever the will
council
was.
would want. Right.
So for me, I think it's great to give the schools money and so forth, and quite honestly, I have children like you do that. My children go to the schools. However, I gotta be telling you, people that I've been bumping into are very, very dismayed at the fact that, you know, the house evaluations go up. Some people have been hit with, you know, $800 to $1,000 tax increase, to the point that some of these people are actually having difficulty. Why not reimburse them with some of this money? It's their money, you know. This is a significant amount of money, and if you were to say put $4 million into the account and you say $8 million of it, by my estimation, for the 20,000 homeowners in the city, you could give them back a $400 rebate.
So I'm not sure about your math. One thing I would say is that we would certainly look into any relief that could happen. And one thing that we plan on doing, and we will come up before this council to do, is, which we did last year, which was the first water and sewer rate decrease in 19 years. I plan on again, coming before this council to ask for a reduction in water and sewer rates. That is one that can happen. It's fiscally prudent, and we look forward to doing that. Absolutely in favor of any type of relief that we can provide.
Yeah, no, the math is, you know, 8 million divided by 20,000 is $400.
I don't know if the math is that
Simple?
clear and simple, but and I would leave it to the folks in our assessor's office
Yeah.
and our director of finance
But I
and our
think-
city auditor to
I mean, I think you would
vet
agree.
that out, and we can certainly vet that out. But that was something that again, my math didn't come out to that kind of
Even
kind of
$200
difference.
if
Right.
we could give them something back.
Right.
You know.
I understand.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Councilor Rotundo. Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the mayor, this is great news, and I'm really, really happy to see some of these appropriations. I'll tell you, as a city councilor, one of the top 3 concerns I get is streets and sidewalks. There's a pothole, there's my sidewalks coming up from a route or whatever it may be. It's one of the biggest issues in our city. And for people to be able to see it, the effects that the city's doing right in front of them, I can't think of a more powerful thing to do. One thing I will say is I hope that our friends at National Grid and the other places respect when we publish this list, because it drives me insane when you see a beautifully paved street and then a week later National Grid is digging it up. And I know that the mayor's office is going to do a great job in coordinating with the utilities to make sure that they don't ruin our beautiful streets again.
We have, and so we've made sure that not only the utility companies know of the list of streets and the extensive work that we'll be doing, but we've made sure to coordinate in-house so
Great.
that our water and sewer folks know. So actually, there have been some streets that we've talked about that we've held off on because we know that there's going to be some water work that's going to be done, and so we want to make sure that that obviously the utilities are part of the conversation and that there's no surprises. Again, if there's emergency work that needs to be done, unfortunately we
Of course.
can't help that.
Of course.
But to think ahead and to make sure that when we dig into the ground and when we rip up a street, that's the last time we rip up that street for a while is important, absolutely.
And I'm very happy to hear that. One of the other items I see on here that I think is really, really great, or several items, are going right to the schools. I can tell you some of the biggest impacts in my life have been from what I accomplished at the Revere Public Schools. So being able to put money in a budget for these kids, for groups and clubs, for sports teams, these are things that will directly impact their lives in either college or the workforce or whatever they do after they leave Revere and hopefully stay in Revere. But it's great. People don't realize that a lot of money that goes into these, it's coming out of the teachers' pockets. When there are extracurricular activities, the teachers are paying for the paper, for the supplies, for the things that they want their kids to experience. And I think that anything we can give them to attribute to those experiences, because they're so important, is great, and I'm so happy to see that. I'll end with just saying, I think that obviously taxes are a big issue that we hear, but I don't think a one-time fix is a way to fix a problem. It's like putting a Band-Aid on something that needs surgery. We have a big issue, and giving people a one-time relief from it's not going to fix it. So I'm really happy to see these because they're all really great positive impacts of things that are true fixes. So great job, and I really look forward to seeing these in action and seeing some new uniforms on our kids.
Thank you, Councilor Janino. Councilor Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know this is going to committee, but we did have a number of people from different departments and groups that are here tonight, obviously excited about some of the reinvestment in our community. So I wanted to thank them for coming tonight, and hopes that we can get this moved forward. And I know that, again, we should do our due diligence in Ways and Means, and I'm sure we will. With that being said, every time we do some streets with the Chapter 90 money, there's always that one more street or one more sidewalk that you want done. I can tell you as a ward councilor, that's how it works for me. So I think this will get me over the hump for each, for this year. And then, of course, I'll probably expect it again next year, Mr. Mayor, so be ready. And then just when it comes to some of these organizations, obviously I'm very invested in the school system when it comes to having 2 kids that go to the Revere Public Schools and seeing what a tremendous job they do for our children. But as I'm a parent experiencing the eventual child going to college, I recognize that education in their grades is a big part of a college application, but colleges nowadays with so much competition look at the student as a whole. So being able to provide these organizations and these clubs with the funds that they need to keep them viable is going to help create more well-rounded students in our city that are going to be more competitive for the best colleges in our states and in this country. That's such a great investment. So I'm excited to help champion this, and I look forward to speaking about it in Ways and Means. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Keefe. Councilor Morabito.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know Councilor Janino and I are vibing. We're on everything she wanted to say. Everything she said I was going to say, but all my colleagues pointed out great things. When I look at this, honestly, I'd like to pat yourself on the back, Mr. Mayor, and I think all of us, we can look at that. At the end of the day, when we vote on this, it's a lot going back to the community and going back to the kids. So as a whole, it makes me feel good voting on all of each item on these requests. Also, my question on the beautification revolving fund. Obviously, Beachmont Improvement Committee, they can. Is that a?
Council, I think you stole Council McKennan's thunder, but so the account, as I said, is named the Revere Beautification Committee Fund. And I've had conversations with the committee, with the beautification committee. And so obviously I would want there to be as many kind of conversations with as many groups as possible about how that money gets spent. It is a significant amount of money. And so we should plan and make sure that whatever gets done ends up making the city beautiful. And that's the ultimate goal. And I think everyone can get on board with that. Whoever's idea or a group, it should kind of transcend that, and it should it is no one group's credit to be taken. So I think that we'll have, if this does get, if the revolving fund is replenished, we will have a conversation to make sure that everyone is at the table, and we are investing in kind of programs and things like signs and flowers that can make the city beautiful and that everyone is on board with.
Absolutely. Like, I know those 2 committees, the Revere Beautification Committee, Beachmont Improvement Committee, they give it their all. They work, they volunteer their time freely, and they get so much done. And so many of the members have been doing it for years.
Right. And that's why we thought it was such a wise investment, right? And exactly. To make sure that folks felt like they were, again, benefiting from the great financial position that the city's in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor
McKenna.
Thank you, Councilor Morabito. Councilor McKenna. And you can talk to Councilor Morabito afterwards about stealing your thunder. I'm calling on you.
Thank you. Well, he did steal my thunder, but that's all right. It goes in a great place, so I would really like to see that. The other thing I have is that you have $1.4 million and you have designated streets to the ward councilors. But we do have, around the city, we have big problems with tree roots uprooting sidewalks, and it's a danger to pedestrians. And I know on State Road, near Our Lady of Lourdes Church, there are a couple of, they're probably about 2 feet high. And I was just wondering if you're going to designate any of that money towards fixing this little bit of sidewalks.
You're getting ahead of me, Counselor.
I'm sorry.
So once the council votes to put money into the capital reserve fund, we will then be coming back to the council for appropriations out of the capital reserve account. And so that will be things like public stairs, tree improvements. Those are things that we had done previously. We'll do that again. We'll make sure that there's an additional amount of money available for tree removal. Absolutely.
I wouldn't want to see the tree removed, but I would like to see the sidewalk fixed.
The sidewalk
I know
fixed,
that.
right. Well, so the stumps have to, sometimes the stumps have to be ground down and.
No, these are live trees.
Okay.
These are live trees that are, they're probably about 25 years old, mature trees, and they don't need to be cut down.
Okay.
We just need, the sidewalk just needs to be fixed.
Fixed, okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McKenna. Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, through you to the mayor, there's 3 things that stick out in my mind. I'm glad to see this. I think it's great. It's the first time I've ever seen this kind of money put into so many different categories. Excuse me. But regarding the school monies, which is almost $500,000 between everything, I just hope that none of that is used for salaries. It has
Absolutely
to be
not. Right.
for
So-
the equipment, for the repairs of buildings.
The guidelines that we'll set up will be really clear. I've already talked to the athletic director, I've talked to the superintendent, I've talked to some folks who run some of the student activities, and I've talked to the principals. And so what the plan is that we have some strict guidelines around how that money gets spent, and that it, again, is for supplies, equipment, materials, not for any salaries, not for anything other than things that are going to improve and benefit the kids and the students who are partaking in those different activities.
Even rewarding the kids,
Right.
kind of at the end of the year, if they need jackets or something like that.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
okay. The second thing is, I was glad to see the amount of money's put in for the historical building. Buildings, a city building, it's in dire need of repairs, and this matching grant will really work well for that particular building.
Yeah, and hopefully we get the matching grant. In the event that we don't, I know that they could probably still use that money in some way, so we'll figure out what happens if they don't get that money. But we wanted to send the message that we were really prepared to receive that grant and put the money up and say that it's dedicated.
Right. And the last item regarding the beautification, yes, and this is a general account. It's not just for 2 organizations to utilize it. It's something for the city to go into the different wards.
Right.
But I just want to make sure that all the wards get their equal.
Understood.
It's because,
Understood.
I know my ward has gotten a lot of grant money from the state, and Mass Works, but there still has to, some money come from the city to put beautification into it, because we've had very little general beautification to that from any organization. Most of it has been myself talking to you, trying to squeeze a planter barrel, concrete barrel for the Shirley Ave area. But I just hope that this $50,000 is equally spread out.
Yeah, like I said, there'll be conversations, and we'll make sure that the ward councilors are part of those conversations, and the entire council, if they so like. But it is important to note that there will be, kind of further conversations about how that money does get spent, and the idea is to equally distribute it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Councilor Novoselsky. Again, this is going over to March 25th meeting before Chairman Rizzo's subcommittee Ways and Means at 5 p.m. So anybody interested in attending to put their input in what they think should be happening with the free cash, You're all invited to come to that meeting to express your views and have a conversation with the subcommittee, which is very important for our community. Next order of business. Calendar item number 14 is being sent to Ways and Means.
Calendar item number 15, communication from the mayor relative to the reappointment of Caruso Court as a licensed drain layer.
Referred to Appointment Subcommittee, chaired by Councilor Janino.
Calendar item number 16, communication from the mayor relative to the reappointment of Mercurio Brothers as a licensed drain layer.
Referred to the Appointment Subcommittee, chaired by Councilor Janino.
Calendar item number 17, motions. Motion presented by Councilor Keefe, that the City Council go on record as being opposed to House Bill 2007, an act for no organized head impacts to school children. This bill would prevent children in grade 7 or under from playing organized tackle football. Further, that the city clerk forward a letter of opposition to the state delegation on behalf of the City Council.
Council Vice President Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't typically do this, and I know that, not to call you out, Councilor Zambudo, I know you don't like these types of feel-good sometimes motions, and I respect that 100%. These resolutions, I don't think I've actually ever presented a resolution. But what I would ask is, and I'd be happy to send this to Legislative Affairs to discuss further. But if you've read, or if anyone's been paying attention to the news in the last few weeks, there's been a bill brought forth, and not to slander the writer of the bill. Everyone has a right to want something. This just to me was really haphazard and not well thought. As a matter of fact, since the initial bill was presented about almost a month ago, over a quarter of the supporters have already removed their names from the bill, and it's continuing. And I would imagine with continued awareness that you'll see more people come off of it. So if I could just ask and let my fellow councilors know, I'm not an expert in this matter, but I'm very well versed in it. Obviously, I'm very well invested in Revere Papuana in the city, but also across the state. I'd be happy to answer any questions and talk to any councilors or any residents for that matter. Please just ask. And but like I said, I'd be happy if this wanted to, if any other councilors wanted to speak, that'd be great. Or if you wanted to, the wish was to send it to Legislative Affairs, I'd be happy to do that as well. But if you wanted to go on it tonight, on the record tonight, that'd be even better. Thank you.
We already have a couple of councilors wishing to speak, and after this discussion, we are going to refer this to Legislative Affairs. Councilor Zambudo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to surprise my colleague by saying that I believe that the legislation was written in a knee-jerk, feel-good way without having all the facts on his side. And I totally support you in this resolution, and it may be one of the first ones I've ever supported, but I am of the ilk that wants parents to parent their kids, and I don't want to force legislation on parents. So that's where I come down on this, and I wholeheartedly support my colleague. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Zambudo. Councilor Rotundo.
Through you, Mr. President, to Councilor Keefe. Who is the sponsor of this bill, the maker of it?
It's Representative Ryan, Representative Paul, and Shoot, I believe. Shoot. I'll just double check it, but we've
Yeah, I just don't see any purpose in putting this in committee. I say we just vote this up and send a letter. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward piece of information. Quite frankly, I just, leave the safety issues to the parents. We don't need to negotiate everything through legislation. What are we going to do, legislate whether kids can have monkey bars or necks? I mean, really.
Thank you, Councilor Rotundo. Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I definitely support my colleague on this motion. It is not a field that I am as educated as he is in, but I support his research and support that parents should be able to make their own decisions. And I think if we continue to shelter kids too much, how are they going to learn and grow? So I support my colleague. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Janino. Councilor Morabito.
Thank you. Well, I understand my colleague and why he's putting this forth. I do believe parents should decide. But now, this is being put on my lap. I don't have kids, but looking at research, and research seems to be consistent by showing possible association between youth tackle football and emotional and cognitive problems. With that said, there's a casino opening up in Everett. If I want to gamble, I'm going to gamble there. I'm not about to play those odds and sign my name on something knowing the odds could be harmful to a kid. That's how I feel.
Is it the will of the city council that we vote on this evening, or is it to a vote? I would ask if we want to, show of hands.
Motion to vote this up.
All those who
Roll call.
want, excuse me, Councilor. All those who want to send this to Legislative Affairs, raise your hand. Okay, we're going to vote on this evening. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
On the motion, Councilor Janino? Yes. Councilor Keefe?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Morbido?
No.
No. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Patch is absent. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rizzo? Yes. Councilor Rotundo? Yes. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes, the motion is approved. Calendar item number 18, motion presented by Councilor Keefe that the mayor request the police department to have a permanent detail from 7:15 a.m. to 8:05 a.m. at the intersection of Mountain Ave and Broadway during school days. When this detail is in place, a normal pattern of traffic and safety is established. When this detail is not present, there are major issues with traffic flow on Broadway.
Council Vice President Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is something that's just come to my attention from a number of parents driving their children to school, but not just parents driving their children to school or kids walking to school, but also commuters that are leaving their houses and trying to get into the city or getting through Broadway traffic in the morning. Obviously, we have a very busy school off Broadway, that's the high school, and a number of students that are crossing specifically that intersection on Mountain and Broadway. There's a lot of gridlock. I did notice a number of mornings there was a police detail or police presence in the area, and things went really smoothly to the point where residents came up to me and said, "Thank you. Were you the person who had the police presence there?" And I said, I'd love to take the credit, but I couldn't. But they all agreed that traffic moved so much more smoothly with less chaos. And then subsequently, I noticed a few mornings later, it wasn't consistent. So I think that this is being done when the police have the right time. All I would ask is that the police department try and find the resources without having to maybe schedule extra people on the shift to allocate them to that shift, that area during the morning to help prevent any accidents, but also the disruption in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Keefe. Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to Councilor Keefe, I think it is a great motion. You know, I drive that roadway of Broadway and Mountain Ave on a regular basis, and I just want to make a suggestion that they also include the afternoon shift when the kids break from school. Not only are the kids and parents walking, but you have the teachers coming out of school, and the amount of vehicles coming out of School Street at Cushman, and the amount of cars coming out of Mountain Ave at Broadway is enormous. So I would recommend that we establish a time for the afternoon, and that it not only be that the presence of the police, but they get out of their cruisers and direct traffic. You know, it's very important. It's not just a matter of sitting in a cruiser and watching to see what happens. Be proactive and control the traffic. It's only 45 minutes to an hour. We can put a shift vehicle there, and sector car for that 1 hour or 45 minutes, and make things safer for everybody. It's very, very important. So that would be my recommendation to you, Councilor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Novoselsky. Councilor Zambudo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just make a friendly amendment to, instead of calling it a detail, ask the police chief to schedule these 2 times a day to, like my colleague said, the sector car or whatever, someone to get out and do a traffic control. And that way the officer is outside directing traffic and not it's not a detail, it's actually a regular traffic guard. So, because nobody's going to pay for this detail, this is something that the chief needs to schedule. So I would
Well, I can
make a
offer a
friendly
point-
amendment to ask the chief to, have the mayor direct the chief to put a traffic officer at this intersection at those times of day. Thank you.
I can offer a point of information in reference to that. I was talking to the Revere Patrolmen's Association's chairperson, and he said that his department, his police officers would have no objection if our auxiliary police department took place on these type of actions.
Even better.
And they would be all for it. And they would be for it for extra details in reference to mornings when police staff have to be used at the various crossings at the schools, that they would have no objection whatsoever of the auxiliary police coming on board.
So that changes the motion again.
That's the Revere Police Patrolmen's Association chairperson telling me that. And
Great.
I also ran this by His Honor the Mayor, and he said he would have no objection to that. He said if they were in favor of this type of activity, then lo and behold, let's do it. So it hasn't taken any progress yet, but this is the type of thing that could bring it to light. And I represent the folks in that area in Mountain Ave, and I certainly hear it from the folks there that they need relief because the traffic is unbearable. On Broadway, it's unbearable. But that intersection comes 4 different directions, and they come at no particular time, and it's just a cross-match of potential hazards happening. So I will carry this out further also with Vice President Keefe to see if the Revere Police Auxiliary would get involved with this type of activity. And I think it's a great idea for them to get involved in the community. All in favor on the motion? All opposed?
All in favor.
So ordered.
Calendar item number 19, motion presented by Council President Guanasso, that the mayor request Capital Waste to appear before the City Council regarding the handling of trash barrels when emptied by its employees. I have received numerous complaints of barrels being destroyed due to employees throwing them. The city has invested a significant amount of money in these new barrels, and neither the city nor its residents should have to bear replacement costs.
Well, Councilors, if I can bear your indulgence as the maker of this motion, to me, this is a very serious situation, not to be treated lightly. I have a disabled person on Proctor Avenue that she hardly can take her barrels out and wheel them to the curbside. But when the trash people come, they just throw the barrel. It's impossible for her to pick it up and wheel it back to her driveway. That's one occasion. I have a gentleman on Pierce Street that complains that they just throw the barrels right from the truck right onto the sidewalk. There's a gentleman on Martin Street that has the same experience. That's me. They threw the barrel right in front of me. The thing went flying by me. And I'm just saying, what the heck did that guy just do? You know, I mean, I thought he was trying out for some show or something. But this type of concern is resonated throughout the whole community, not only in Ward 3, all over. And we have a costly thing in front of us. We have $75 a barrel. Now, if the homeowner is responsible for replacing this is not fair. We have to have them up before us to discuss this and tell them that we can't allow your employees to throw the barrels. Place them down and wheel them back to where they were. I mean, there's not a big effort there. You know, it's just easier than just tossing them. And these, the makeup of these barrels aren't as sturdy as the recyclable bins. These are a little bit more frail. And I would think that we're going to experience a lot of cost here and a lot of angry residents if we don't get this right in the butt. So I want them to appear at our next order regular business, which is March 25th. Anyone else wishing to speak on the motion? All in favor? All opposed? So ordered. Seeing no other further business before us, the City Council will be held in adjournment until March 25th at 6 p.m. Thanks for your attendance. And by the way, before we adjourn, I acknowledge our school committee woman, Carol Ty, in the audience, who's been here so patiently and quiet all night. Welcome, Carol.